Applicants may now be dismissed. Thank you.
Okay, I'm doing a second part of the video we started before I got interrupted by YMCA people. I think I'm in a pretty quiet place. Let me open up the thing I had. Let's see here. Where is it? There it is. Okay. So the passive endings, we were just kind of going over them. The commonality for most of them is that letter R. Okay. And imperfect, we're adding BA in front of like those same exact endings to make it present passive. So we're going to review how to go like translate these, but basically it's a subject am, are, or is verbed. And you're going to use am, or are, or is depending on what the subject is, whereas imperfect be, was, or were verbed. And it's that simple. And hopefully these are very kind of recognizable. I think they kind of stand out the same way imperfect passive stand out pretty well. Now, future passive, just like future active for third, fourth conjugation, are so loud. These are also very weird. So it's like, again, it's the long E that is showing us that these are future passive as opposed to present passive. Their present passive counterparts would use like I, R, I, S, I, T, U, R, etc. I think going forward, I'm just going to label verbs when they are third or fourth conjugation, because expecting you guys to recognize if a verb is third or fourth conjugation just based on a conjugated form, it's kind of a lot to ask given that we have so much going on. But hopefully you're at least somewhat familiar with that concept with or without me pointing out that something is third or fourth. But if I do point that out, just be on guard or on be ready to kind of identify that. All right, so present passives. Let's translate these real quick. I did this in class. I am verb. If you were in the essay yesterday, you can kind of skip this. I guess this is kind of at this point for Christian and Kai. You are verb. So it's key that we know the conjugated forms of to be, right? That's kind of the big thing here. It is verbed. What else? We are verbed. Y'all are verbed. They are verbed. So I don't need to repeat. I don't know if I need to type those out because we settle on are on the plural side. They are verbed. Now, future passives. What are we going to do to make it future? This is third singular, so we're just going to use will, right? Will. It will be verbed is the way we would do that. Whereas been more, that is first person plural. Future tense, so that'll be we will be verbed. And good. We also have some examples for third and fourth. Now I asked you guys like which one's future, augator and augator, and which one's present. This one is future. So this is it will be verb, whereas augator is just present passive. It is verb. Again, look for that long E, but that is based on you actually being able to look at that and be like, oh, augator is from ago agra, which is third conjugation. It's not gayri, it's not second conjugation, it's agra. Again, that's asking a lot. That's why I'll probably label third and fourth conjugation verbs, at least when they show up in the passive or like the future, the passive voice or the future tense. And then agemor. Which one is future passive? It is this one, right? So that is going to be we will be verbed, whereas this one is we are verbed. Okay, and then we moved on to perfect passives. Again, if you're in the class, you don't have to sit this again. But sometimes it's actually nice to get extra views. So I'm not to assume that it's first person singular perfect passive. So I am verbed is how we want it. No, I'm sorry. I have been verbed. We're using two helping verbs. The have, which we like know and love from perfect active, and the been is what actually makes it passive. Because if we take out been, then it's just perfect active. I have verbed. I verbed a direct object. Where with been, now we understand that it's happening to the subject I. Whereas amor is just good old present passive that we already went over. I am verbed. So on and so forth. I won't go through all these. This is you are verbed. You have been verbed versus you are verb present passive. Again, perfect passive is a the fourth principal part of a verb, I might start labeling kind of what the verb is coming from when they show up. Because, like, hopefully you can look at Amatis and be like, oh, that looks kind of like amo, amare, if you're expecting it to be coming from a verb. But I might start labeling it. And then it's combined with a form of sum esse if it's just good old perfect passive. Now, if it's pluperfect passive, we will use the imperfect form of sum esse, which you see here, arama, arasa, rat, aramas, aratus, rant. And if it's future perfect passive, we will use the future form of sum esse. So let's get some examples of that. Amatis erant is pluperfect passive. That's I had been verbed. Amatis ero is future, and I should label these. So this is pluperfect passive. Amatis ero is I will have been verbed, which is first person singular, future perfect passive. Amati eramis, again, if you see the ERA, that tells us it's the imperfect form of sum esse, like up here. And so that would make it a pluperfect passive. So that would be we had been verb. Again, try to think of like when sum esse is in the present tense, that's when it's just perfect passive. So there's kind of a correlation between present tense, imperfect, or present and perfect tense, imperfect and pluperfect tense, and then future and future perfect tense. That should be obvious. Oh, I bet my keyboard sound is really loud right now. Sorry. This is an audio disaster. Amati erunt is going to be future perfect passive, so that'd be they will have been verbed, where amati sunt is perfect passive. They have been verbed. All right, let me run through ablatives without prepositions. We basically have three different types of ablatives without prepositions. The book insists ablative of manner can show up without a preposition, but it almost never happens, so I'm kind of disregarding it. Let's see. I decided that I did not like this example in class, so let me change this to paucis oris, and you can do the same if you're following along. So basically, the way to identify this is that if you see a noun that basically describes a period of time, which is like we only have about 4 of those. Dies is day, tempus is time, ora is hour, and aitas is age. You're going to, and then on top of that, if it's in the ablative, you're going to want to add or employ one of these 4 English prepositions to translate it. So paucis oris, something about a few hours. Do we say in a few hours, at a few hours, within a few hours, on? We can say in or within, actually. Both of those work pretty good. So it would kind of depend on context, and we could play around with different options there. Eo tempora, we've seen this before a lot. I would say that should be at that time. We're treating eo as a personal pronoun functioning demonstratively. Nocte by itself, we don't actually have this word yet, but we've seen it in stories. That'd be like at night, just based on that's what we say in English. Where mane, which comes from the word meaning morning that we don't have, in English we would say in the morning. So a lot of this is just based on what sounds good, what we normally would say in English. And the trick is just that you're having to identify this in the context of a sentence, something like Cicero, paucis oris res publicum eripiet, I think was the example of the quiz. So once we put it in the context of the sentence, that's when it becomes a little harder to differentiate it from the rest of the sentence. But hopefully you can see these are both ablative. Oris is from ora, hour of time is a period of time. And so, okay, we need to add a preposition in the English, even though we don't have one in Latin. So it's like Cicero, in a few hours, will save the Republic, or whatever. Hoc die is going to be something like, so it's this day, right? So in this day, at this day, maybe on, right? On this day sounds pretty good, even when it's in all caps, looking all jank. Illa aistate would be, and that's that means that summer. I meant to say aitaste. Aitaste, I guess. But I said aitaste, which is summer actually. In that summer, I don't know. Bad example. Let's toss it out. Ablative means y'all are used to this one. Scripsi litteros. That would translate to I have written letters with my hands. And we know just to use with because manu is ablative and there's no cum, but we don't need there to be a cum. So I think y'all are pretty good at that one. But when this happens when the verb is passive, that's a little more complicated. So this would be like the letters. And then what? Tense and voice are scripti. Sunt is the present third person plural of sumasse. Scripti is from the fourth principal part of scribo scribra. Hopefully you can kind of see that. And so this is going to be the letters have been written. And then we see manu there. And then again, just like in the first example, we just add with. Yeah. So this is because like, let's see, 50 to 80% of the time that we have a passive verb, we're going to have an ablative. It'll be an ablative of means if it's like an object that is like responsible for the verbing. If it's a person, that's when it's agent. And we use a or ob. So this one it doesn't count as an ablative that doesn't have a preposition. There usually is an a or ob. Every once in a while there might not be, but something like this would be letters have been written ob mihi. Mihi is the ablative version of like the first person personal pronouns. So it should be by me. So just want to kind of compare those. Last thing, y'all seem to really struggle with identifying the ablative of separation. So this really only happens with 3 verbs. As far as I know, there might be a 4th I'm forgetting, but kareo to lack, word I think I'm having trouble remembering. Prohibeo to keep out from. Sometimes libero to liberate. So this one, Cicero hostes ob urbe prohibuit, would be something like Cicero keeps out the direct object, the enemy, from the city. And so here, even if there was no ob, sometimes there will be, sometimes there won't be a preposition with the ablative of separation. But either way, urba there is going to be our ablative of separation. And that would be the function. So even if there was an x here, I would not actually accept that it's the object of x. I know we used to use that a lot last year, but I would want the specific function here, and that would be ablative of separation. Eos timora liberavi would be something like I freed them. And then we see timora, which if you don't remember, timoris means fear. It's in the ablative. We don't know what preposition to use. So just based on context of knowing that when you free something, you're often freeing it from something else is enough for us to know that it's from fear, an ablative of separation. So that is like a couple leaps in logic there that you need to be able to do. It's a little difficult. Like, why can't they just put X, day, or ab? I don't really know. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do use the Latin preposition, but they don't always, and they expect us to know kind of the context of the sentence and kind of expect it. This last one, I want to make one more point, and then we're done, and y'all can work on homework for the rest of class. But this would be like the farmers. We're lacking is the verb here, karabant. Or they were often lacking money, okay? And so the point I wanted to make in class is that grammatically, it feels like the thing they're lacking, like the thing that would come after lacking would be a direct object, right? But if you look at it, it's not accusative. It has a long A, it's ablative. So it's not actually a direct object, it's an ablative of separation. And that is a little tricky and weird, because some of these will take a direct object and an ablative separation, right? Like I'll keep out the direct object enemies from the ablative city of separation. I freed the direct object them from the ablative separation fear, so on and so forth. But in this case, I think it might mostly just be a thing with kareo kareri. Pecunia, the ablative separation, basically feels like a direct object, but it's not. So just be wary of that. And now y'all can work on homework. And sorry for the crazy sound issues. I literally could have just started, could have waited till now to start, and we wouldn't have had the intercom issue. But anyway, thanks guys, and ask any questions if you have them.